But we now, another big issue in native seed is always the testing of it, because that helps. I mean, that basically runs everything. When we're marketing seed on the basis of pure live seed, we got to know what that is. So we are very delighted to have Gil Weibel here with us, who has a lengthy career as a seed analyst and is working on the Testing Wild Seeds project to help develop resources for seed analysts and also to help with the rules development process for wild seeds. So please give your attention to Gil.
Thank you. Oops. I'm going to get a sword. Thanks. No? I'll just talk here. I got my things here to follow. It'll just be easier to look at that. That's okay.
That's fine.
All right. Sorry about that. So my name is Gil Weibel, and I'm retired now, so I don't work anywhere, just in my office at home. But we set up a committee about 10 years ago to start working on the problem internationally for testing wild or native seeds. In the United States, of course, we call it native seeds, although we just heard a lawyer talking about wild, and it's kind of interchanged. I think there's fundamentally a few differences, possibly a person might think if they look at it fundamentally, but basically we're talking the same species, and they test the same in the lab, and that's all I care about. So in the U.S., it's native. Most of the rest of the world refers to these kind of seeds as wild seeds. And since it's an international committee, I was told it was going to be the wild seed committee. So that's what we have. The committee members, I'm the chair of the committee. Heidi Larson is with SGS, and she tests seeds in South Dakota. Riyad Belbaki is testing seeds in California at the California State Seed Laboratory. Sue Alvarez is retired now, but she's spent a lot of time in the last 2 years helping me with writing seedling evaluation forms for wild or native type seeds. There are some differences basically on what I think we should be looking at as we evaluate seedlings. If a seed germinates in a test, should that be counted as part of the germination percentage? Yes or no? Do we know? Yes. Well, basically, though, some of the seeds that do germinate don't have essential structures. It may be missing the shoot or the root. It might have decay on essential areas of the seed, different things about the seedling that make the probability of growing into a healthy plant practically zero. And so we don't call those kind of seeds that germinate normal seeds. Normal seeds are what goes into the germination percentage. I don't know why I got into that sidetrack. Okay. So at any rate, the wild seed, we also have members from Canada on the committee, Brazil, Italy, Germany. From the UK, we have the Millennium Seed Bank is involved with us. With Kew, and New Zealand, Australia, and North Africa. And then we also have candidates from India, South Africa, and Mexico. We'll have 15 committee members, and we're established. It used to be most of our group was from Europe and the U.S., but once we got to this point where we're ready to go worldwide, we wanted to have more representation around the planet so we can bring in species from all over. The Wild Species is building a website. Our original goal is to build a handbook. Well, if you ever worked in an organization like ours, if you wrote a handbook, you're lucky if in 10 or 15 years you get the next edition. And we envision that we'll be having daily changes and additions to our website and corrections and modifications. And so we thought that a website would be better than a handbook for our needs. What we're focusing on are the species with no seed testing rules. And if it's in the rules, ISTA or AOSA, then we will put in about it, and then we'll reference the person to the rules that they can find out how to test the seeds there. So if when we have no rules, the labs testing the species create their own protocols. And so this is a problem that we have between laboratories. We're all testing them different, sometimes very differently. Germination, we have issues with germination, with dormancy, and I'm having trouble reading this. Dormancy and requesting how to gain optimal germination percentage. And thank you. And then tetrazoleum, we're also having parts in that talking about how to do the tetrazoleum testing for dormancy breaking or for dormancy determination at the end of the test, or just pure TZ test. So the ISTA rules and the AOSA rules are basically the two rules used in the world. There are some others. Canada has their methods, procedures and methods, and so on. But these are the two primary rules. And so when ISTA put this committee together, they included AOSA and SCST, which is the commercial side of the AOSA group, to be working with them on this, because we've been testing wild species for longer than anyone else in the world. And so it's a good opportunity for all of us to be working together. It's a small group of people who test these seeds, and the more minds you have, the better, right? So challenges for testing native seeds. There are dormancy complexities, sometimes multiple kinds of dormancy in the same species. Each year, those dormancy characteristics may express themselves differently. Sometimes the lay way we say it, it's a deeper or a lighter dormancy this year than we've had other times. So these species don't always act cookbook for us in the test. We have to adapt to these kind of things in the lab. Can high levels of chaff and empty seeds takes a long time to separate from the sample. Seed lots that are collected in the wild, think about it, they're going to be contaminants. Seed labs have done agronomic species mostly, never saw. So we have identification issues trying to identify these seeds. And I'm sure for anyone growing or selling seeds, that's one of the big complaints with seed labs is we don't always identify seeds the same. But we really don't have a good resource that we can all use for these kind of seeds. That's one of the things this website's going to try to address. Uniform testing between labs is impossible with no rules, because each lab develops their own methods. And you know, every lab has something to offer, and so this is going to be kind of a very plastic type of a thing. We're making protocols, but if somebody calls in and says, we have something that works better there, we can easily update and change things so that we bring what's best in the world into one location. At least that's the vision. I've been told I'm naive at times. Testing wild seeds for the website. So this is the old address, and it will be the new address for the website as well. We have changed programmers from the one in Canada to Switzerland. ISTA has their own formatting they like to use. So the look of, you can see a picture of what the website looks like right now, right here. That'll change. Hopefully by July the new one will be coming up. So we spent a lot of money developing that website, only to find we didn't have the content. I was trying to buy another half a year before we programmed. Now, what comes first, the money or the effort? I don't know. It's the chicken and the egg problem. So I went after the money as I was working on this, but I got the money a lot quicker than I thought I would. Well, I was going to lose it if I didn't get something programmed right away. So that was the pressure. So the good thing is we have a website. We know what didn't work. We know what we need. We also know what we liked, and we got good feedback on the structure of what we built. So I know we're on the right track. So website content will have methodology chapters on how to do a purity test, germination, TZ. Somebody wants to write a chapter on X-raying seeds to try to measure viability that way. Another person suggested mini cleaning of seeds. My person who suggested that's retired, and the guy that said would do it is not. I'm not sure he's going to do it now. But anyway, anything that we can think of that helps make testing seeds better and just fundamental knowledge of how to test these seeds, we would like to put into the methodology chapter. That's the general type stuff. Then we're going to have in the protocol section a nomenclature section in it, or the protocols. And the protocols will be by species, not by genera. And we'll have nomenclature, we'll have purity sections, which will include pure seed definitions from both ISTA and AOSA and working weights for the tests. Germination section will include dormancy breaking and germination method, including seedling evaluation forms by family or in a few cases subfamily. And tetrazolium worksheet, which will help people know how to prep seeds, cut the seeds, and then also what structures in the seeds for each family do we need to have stain for it to be normal. Because a perisperm does not stain, but it looks like endosperm, but endosperm does. So I've seen people early on, if the perisperm didn't stain, they thought the seed wasn't going to be viable. So it's really important that we're very clear what structures we're looking at and what does and doesn't stain for that family. We have a gallery of images. This is what we're going to use to help people identify seeds. And we've already got about 3,000 images that are photoshopped and ready to go in. I've got another 3,000 to take in my office. And we're going to be getting pictures from all over the world that go into this, so that it'll probably be the biggest seed image herbarium in the world when we get done with this, I'm guessing. One of the things about this is I can't promise that the seeds that were in my old herbariums are that species. I think it's pretty good. I know it is, or I wouldn't be doing it. But if anybody ever sees a seed that doesn't look right to you, call me and we can pull it. If you have a seed that we can take an image of that you know is right, this is something we're going to need to work with the world to perfect. But you have to start somewhere, and everybody says you can't use your herbarium because you can't guarantee everything. Well, if that's the case, we're not going to get started. So that's kind of my philosophy, and I would welcome those calls, not dread them. And then we have get the gallery, and then we have a pretty comprehensive glossary, and anytime a new method or a new word is used in the website, I'm trying to be alert if it's not in the glossary to add it. Because we're going to have people that English is not their primary language, and it would be nice if they can look at it. Another feature we're going to add to the website is if you hover over a word, if it's in the glossary, it'll pop up right there. How many times have you gone into a website, had to go look up something and try to figure out where you were? So I wanted to bring the definition to a person right there. Okay, I better pick this up. Let's see, this one. So protocols with no species. So the wild species are sold in a regional area. There may be very few seed lots available, which is a problem if you want to do research to see what optimal testing would be. You can't just do that on one or two seed lot, but you can develop a protocol for how it tested in your laboratory. It's not exactly research. Sometimes you look at where the seed came from. You might use the temperatures from that region that would be used for the seed growing there. That's a good logical step to use to start with what temperatures to use in the germinator. So the rules, if we make a rule, we have to do research to figure out a protocol first. When we have a protocol that we've developed that we want to make a rule of, we send referees out to at least 6 different seed labs of at least 6, and if it's a major crop, even more, maybe a dozen different seed lots. And those 6 labs need to test it using that new rule. And if the results come back intolerance, we can use it as a rule. Otherwise, we consider that suggested rule as not repeatable in the laboratory. But experienced labs is another very important word. How are you going to get 6 labs on the same wild species that maybe 1 or 2 labs test and got to be expert at? It's pretty hard to do, so you can't really expect people who've never done something to compare them with others to measure repeatability. So rules are really not the way to go with wild seeds. And I'm glad we came up with the concept of calling them protocols. The need for standardized training, this is really important. Most of the training for seed analysts is on agronomic species. The rules in the very first sentence actually says that those rules are developed for agricultural purposes. Well, I'll go into that a little bit deeper as we go into this. Wild seeds training will be the next priority after we get some content in the website. And so maybe in about a year after we get it programmed, we'll be able to start working on, I'd like to start with online training, cookbook type things or cooking kitchen type things where you put all the ingredients together, how you do it, and then it flips around and you're pulling it out of the oven and here you see, so you can actually see what happened. Same thing with TZs. You can immediately see how the seeds that you just saw cut will be in that training. So I think it'll be really good for seed labs that are all doing their own training programs to start having a centralized place to train their seed analysts from. And I think that will go farther toward more uniformity in testing than anything. Hands-on workshops will also be important down the road. The nice thing about the online, your analysts in your lab can go and do those studies immediately. Workshops come around few and far between. But it is nice to go to those some too. Ultimate hopes and goals. This is my last slide. The seed industry uses a philosophical basis of testing seeds for agricultural purposes. We just talked about that. Dormancy for most agricultural species is not a good thing because it can cause an ununiform stand at the time of harvest. And I like to use tomatoes because I used to live in California as an example. 2% green tomatoes in a semi-load of tomatoes just harvested for harvest would reject the whole lot. That whole semi goes to the dump. That shows the importance with, even if you have corn, if you have too many differences and you have too many wet seeds mixed in, even after you dried it, and you have wet seeds mixed in, it can cause mold in what you have. You really want to have a uniform crop. Well, are we harvesting our seeds? Are we harvesting what we plant for natives? No, we don't. One example for in the testing rules is the root should be at least half the length of the shoot for an agricultural. If it's less than that, they say that plant may not be uniform at the time of harvest. That's why it's called abnormal. But with us, we could still make a plant, and who cares? So I will say most seed labs have shortened that ratio up, so that's been addressed within our seed testing community. But it's things like that, little fine tweaks that we need to change to help test these wild species for the purpose they need to be. So, the opportunity then will help empower us to define what the important goals are to measure seed quality for wild species. And now we have people from all over the world, from all of the 3 main organizations working together and seed banks, and we can start discussing what do we want it to look like for wild species instead of just for agricultural crops. And by separating from the ISTA and AOSA rules gives us a fighting chance to make that decision. It's the people who test wild seeds at the seed conferences, when we bring rules proposals in, and it's gotten a little better over the years. It's taken a lot of work to get it modified, but the people who do agronomics are fearful of the things we talk about. What do you mean you want to change that ratio? What do you mean what do you mean dormancy is good? We want to break dormancy. You know, and they don't get it, and they put up these huge brick walls, and I will tell you, 20 years ago, it was impossible to get anything in there for native type species. So that's the goal. We'll be in a different format with people doing the same thing, and maybe we can make better progress. Anyway, I think did I go over? I don't know.